Welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast, where women 60 and beyond redefine work with purpose and confidence. I'm Nigel Rawlins, your guide to building a resilient career through self-employment, consulting or new ventures. Each episode delivers practical strategies, expert insights and intellectual capital to master business, marketing and technology while staying mentally sharp and aligned with your goals. We'll explore networked entrepreneurship, authentic branding, AI-powered work, cognitive vitality and resilient transitions to unlock opportunities and create a future filled with impact. Join me to transform your experience into a thriving, purpose-driven career. This is Wisepreneurs. Let's get started. Welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast. I'm Nigel Rawlins. Today I'm thrilled to welcome back Tomáš Baránek, Czech publisher, entrepreneur and life hacker, for his second appearance. In a world where AI churns out content faster than we can blink, Tomáš takes a different path, curating top-tier nonfiction, meticulously translated from English to Czech to spark deep learning. We dive into why print books still hold unmatched value, how technology can enhance rather than replace creative work, and why critical thinking and deep reading are vital for resilience. If you're a professional over 60 building a solo business or aspiring to thought leadership, this episode is for you. Tomáš, welcome to the Wisepreneurs podcast. This is the second time you've been a guest on the Wisepreneurs podcast. The first one was episode 41 last year in April. Welcome back. So, Tomáš, can you tell us something about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah. Thank you, Nigel, for having me the second time. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I'm entrepreneur. I'm a book publisher. I'm father of 3 kids and husband. And yeah, I am a life hacker. I'm writing about ways how to improve your life and use technology during this process. And that's mostly it.
Well, that's an awful lot because you're a rather young person, aren't you?
Oh, I'm not. I feel like, but I'm 53 in 3 months. So yeah, I hope I can tell it's still young enough.
I think that's young. 53 is a good age, I think. Okay, so let's talk about publishing. Now, we did talk about it in episode 41, but I want to talk to you again about it because it seems quite fascinating. You haven't got a big population in the Czech Republic. So tell us a little bit about publishing again in your area, and then we'll talk about what you actually publish, which I think is very fascinating.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question because the population of the Czech Republic is actually 10 million people, maybe a bit more, plus a lot of Ukrainians now because we help them to settle temporarily. And so our population is not so huge, but we have a huge book market because the book culture here is very deeply enrooted in our history. And we have, 16,000 of new books per year or several thousand of publishers, including the one book once. So it means there is a huge competition and a lot of cooperation. By the way, our publishing company is like a middle sized. We have 25 people as inside staff, but it's not the biggest, but we publish books from nonfiction area that are published in circulation around in hundreds of thousands. Yeah? For example, End of Procrastination from Peter Ludwig. It had nearly 2,000 copies sold from the publishing date. So we can deliver books to our readers in a big circulation because we can explain what's important, and that is the main point. We publish just it depends from 12 to 20 books per year, but we really try hard to choose or to create books that are really important, that prepare people for the future. So, for example, translations of books that we buy license for are from the most interesting thinkers or writers from the whole world. So, for example, Harari or Kahneman or and many others. So, if you choose well, and if you don't push too much, in a sense of many titles that you publish per year, you can deliver a great experience, a great knowledge to a big number of readers that can pay attention to you. When you publish hundreds of books per year, which it's common, big publishers do this. You can't rely on their affinity to you. They will not wait for the next book that you publish. They just see you are flooding the market and waiting what will grow a bit more than other. So we don't do that. So we really do our research. We check for authors and experts as soon as possible, proactively. I don't like the word, but we search for authors that could even write a book because they, for example, publish great things on social media. So we ask them, we persuade them to publish books or book, and sometimes it works. But maybe I talk more about our company than about the Czech market.
That's okay. I think it's fabulous because, we don't always think about the books that we see, but from the sounds of it, if you're only publishing 15 a year, or up to 15 or 20 maybe, and you've got a reputation for the type of books that you're choosing, do you find, we will talk about some of those books in a moment. Do you find that you can almost have people subscribing to every book that you send out because you're fitting their particular niche?
Yeah, that's something we even consider creating some subscription, tier, but it wouldn't work probably because some readers want it. They tell us, okay, Melvil, we read all your books. I buy all your books because you are like curating book choice for me. So create some subscription and I will just pay for it once a year and then deliver. But the problem is that books are not magazines. We can't predict easily what we would publish in the future, what price it would have, and so on. So it could end not very well, predicting our revenue and the budget of this project. So not sure if it could work. But yes, people can rely on us as in this society where everyone is pushing information to you in every mean, in all means. It's hard to find reliable sources. And I think publishers should go back to what their job is about, actually, and start being reliable again, as they were, when choosing titles and when being the point where you can ask for a topic or problem you want to solve or you are coping with, and you got the answer. It's like any other service. Your doctor should work like that, or your therapist. You just ask him, her, and you got answers that are good for you, that don't damage you. But the market says something else. Many creators, not just book creators, but content creators, just flood the market. So we want to be like the old-fashioned curators of information in information age, in AI era, for readers who want deeper information, more concise and still very informative in this world.
So I heard a couple of things there. Curation was one word.
Yeah.
You're curating almost an education for your people, for your readers, and you're looking to give them depth of knowledge. But what you're doing is you're licensing the book and then you're translating it into the Czech language.
Yeah.
Don't the Czech people read English, or do they prefer to read Czech?
Yeah, they do. But still there is a slight, I don't know how to call it, but there is slight barrier that you have nearly always when you don't read in your native language, that you talk mostly through the day. So book as a medium itself is not easy to consume, even if you read it in your language. So the slight barrier still makes a huge difference. When you are tired and you want to just sit into your couch and relax with a book, it's not so relaxing when you read it in your second language. So that's the point. People are really understanding English on a basic level really great here, very well. Czech language is Slavic language. It's not similar to English. So it's not easy to learn. It would be easier to learn Russian, but sorry, we will not again. But English is okay for our readers. They usually say, okay, my favorite author, which I read newsletters from, who I follow on social media, is publishing her or his book in English now, but I will wait for your translation. And by the way, it can take half a year or even several months or more than half a year. But still, they wait for it because, and that's the reason why we have to do our work well. We are nearing the topic of AI and automated translation now. Because if you want to enjoy reading it in Czech, the translation has to be really perfect. It has to be even better than if you read it in English. It's not about changing content, absolutely not. But it's about fluidity of reading, or it's not the word, but it's about how flawless or how well it is compatible with reading habits and so on. So we have to push really hard to make it easily readable in Czech and still keeping all the emotion of original text. And that is the point. We haven't found a way to use AI translation, at least not directly or fully at this point, because I don't know if it is only in Czech, but Czech is very rich language. It has a lot of synonyms for every word. You use a bit different word, it has a bit different meaning too. Even you could consider it as it is the same, but it is not. So you always have to choose what word is better in this context, in this book, in the context of other books that we publish, in context of the terminology of the field. So there are many variables that go into this process. And yes, it's about context. As you know, we know that AIs need context to work properly in some useful way. So you still can't pour into whole cultural context. Yeah, it's impossible. So we are not yet there, and we are happy about it. Actually, we like how people translate what they put into translation. So that's it. Readers in Czech read in Czech, and it's still not changing too much. But we publish Czech audiobooks too, which are narrated by some Czech actors, and it sounds really real. They are real people. There are some small mistakes in their speech and so on. And it's very similar to reading human-made translation. And we still think that there is something that attracts readers to paper books, to human voices, that actually shows that the paper book market and the audio market is growing, and the paper book market is not diminishing, not just in the Czech Republic, but in the world. Audiobooks are growing a bit, but mostly they eat ebook market a bit, not the paper market. So I think that's interesting. It means that there is something in the book itself as in the medium, and then in the formats, in the paper, and the way how you consume it. Because when you take paper book, you usually sit somewhere else than you sit when you have your phone or tablet opened. It's not computer, it's different mindset. And that is what people, in my opinion, what people strive for. They need this in their lives. So that's hope for our business too. Yeah.
Stay inspired with the Wisepreneurs newsletter. Every week I share exclusive strategies on business, marketing and tech for women 60 and beyond, drawn from over 67 podcast episodes and 100 articles. Visit wisepreneurs.com.au to sign up and get my free career reinvention checklist today. Don't miss out. I'm a big reader of Kindle.
I know.
And the reason is that I do take notes and feed them in through Readwise into my note-taking app. And I've been with Roam for 5 years, and I've just shifted to LogSec, which is very simple. I'm not too sure how I'm going to go with it. It is very simple. But I like to grab those notes and then use them.
Yeah.
What you've just said is quite fascinating because publishing is a business. I mean, a book that's purchased by somebody is bought for a reason. And you mentioned earlier that it solves a problem. It might be the problem they want to think more about a particular topic or get some depth of knowledge. Now, I saw on LinkedIn, now you're always writing in Czech on LinkedIn, but there's a button there that says translate. And one of the books you mentioned was The Wager. This was a while back. And I read that book. I got it on my Kindle to read. But it was the most amazing book that I'd ever read. Maybe you'd like to say something about why you chose that one for your Czech readers. Tell us something about that particular book. And then I want to talk to you about Yuval's book. And then we'll talk about AI and stuff like that.
Sure. It's a book from David Grann, purely historical book about a big and somehow defining voyage.
1741, so we're talking about old sailing ships.
It's very old sailing ships. For me, the book is maybe more about other aspects. Even the book is really terrifying, or maybe it's a story that you can't just put off, and you have to read it until the end without stopping, because the conditions in which sailors lived and what things they had to do to survive, and it's really a very strong book. But for me, it's very interesting that even in these centuries during history that we consider, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit stupid, but when I look at the history, I sometimes see or think that people were not so clever like we are. I'm sorry for that, but I know that's not true. But somehow some bias that we have looking at, I don't know, maybe black and white pictures or drawings. I don't know. The world was colorful and was maybe even more mindful in some way than our is. So when you read this book, and I haven't read it, I listened to it in the audio version, narrated by a great actor, and it sounded really like I can't stop. So I saw that we haven't made some big progress yet as a society in many ways. It seems like, for example, the media manipulation and the way how sailors that returned from these voyages after really excruciating, terrible experiences, how they tried to improve the way how world perceived their trip and what they did there. Then not just society, but media and governments tried to use this information, and it's so similar to what we do now, a kind of propaganda or media manipulation. And they had no internet or social media. They just used books. So sailors returned from the trip, and to improve their image, they just wrote a book like diary or a journal. Yeah, they rewrote or republished their journal. But sure, it was a bit biased or even deliberately improved to serve purpose of improving their image, even save their lives in some process later. So it's something that we see now, and we saw it probably then. So David Grann made a great work showing us that this is something that was always with us. Then we have to be critically thinking every day.
I was very fascinated by it. The hardship that those sailors went through, but also the intelligence of those sailors, that they actually could write.
Yeah.
We assume that because they didn't go to university or they weren't educated, none of them would have probably gone to school, and they would have probably gone to sea at a young age, and yet they were still able to write detailed things. But the reason we know that they had to write this stuff because it was potentially a mutiny, and in those days, because they were part of the British Navy, they could be hanged by the neck. So it was pretty horrific. But what I don't get is, why would the Czech people be interested in this?
Okay, sorry, I forgot to answer this question. Most of our books are like nonfiction books. We started with productivity books and economics and psychology and how to make your life better. But then we found that you can't learn and you can't improve your future if you don't understand the past. It's nothing new, but from the perspective of publisher, we saw the gap here. And because Vitek likes history, and he even was editor-in-chief of some magazine on history, we hired a historian, Marek Vlha, who is really great editor too, and he's now editor-in-chief of all books that we publish. But his view on history is very compatible with the view of how we want to help our readers shape their future. So we started the set of books on historical topics. The main rule for choosing books is interesting and well written and sourced to entertain our readers. So we want to bring history and historical topics to our readers that could be a bit like I was, blindsided, or see the world just through lens of, productivity, effectiveness, and these all buzzwords that you can listen everywhere. And it's enlightening in some way, because when you look into the past, you really find other prisms how you can consider what you are doing, where you are going in your life. So it works. So we chose not just Wager, and Wager is a very special book because it's about sea and or ocean, and we don't have ocean. We have just lakes here. We are in the center of Europe. So it's something distant enough and something we want. There is many jokes and memes and feelings about we don't have sea. I understand that it was your intention to bring me here. So we somehow can materialize ocean and sea through our imagination. So we guessed, and we were right, that it would work. So Wager is a book like that. And by the way, there will be, I hope there will be a movie, Wager, with Leonardo DiCaprio. And I hope it will be in cinemas and theaters next year. I don't remember the last information about this. So it could help the book itself too, but I still think the book is much better because, or not better, but it helps to use your imagination, which is a very nice process itself because it helps you to thrive, not just consume. And we publish other books on history. By the way, The Dawn of Everything, there are many books that are very influential, and we published a book from Yuval Harari, Nexus, but we already published a book in Czech years ago from Harari, Sapiens, which is probably his most known book, and it is a huge bestseller, many million of copies sold. And he's probably the most influential living historian at this moment. And even there are some critics that are sometimes substantiated. We have chosen to publish the book again because the previous publisher, which published it in Czech, lost their rights, lost their license. So we bought it. We had the highest bid here and bought both licenses for Nexus and Sapiens 2, and it will be published again in 3 months. What's interesting that, for example, this book about history, Sapiens, is not republished, it's not printed for, several years already. But you can still buy it for twice or 3 times higher price than is normal book price because people want it. You can go to library. We have a great network of libraries here too. But if you want to own it, you have to pay a lot. So that's another signal that people still want to read popular books on history here. And we want to deliver the book or these books to our readers too. Because now, as you probably know, the history is somehow repeating. Or it at least seems like that in our region. Russians are closing and we already lived through these nightmares. So I think history is even more important now after the peaceful period in Europe that has ended. So that's it.
Okay. So Nexus, Yuval Noah Harari. Have you published that one or you're about to publish that one?
Yeah, it has been published. We have the same cover and it's really beautiful. It has been published the last week. It seems like it's one of the biggest book launches in our country. And the book is about history of information networks from Stone Age until the AI. I have thousands of notes from the book. Yeah, I read it for 2 months, but it is not so heavy book to read. It's much easier. But if you are a heavy note taker, as I am, you have a problem with this book because there is so many disturbing or interesting or just funny ideas that I found or connected with my ideas, so that I couldn't help myself and I had to do these notes. So this is something that I read and we published it just in time. I think there is still time to think about how to implement AIs in our lives and being aware of its drawbacks and even risks.
Well, it's 500 pages nearly, isn't it? So
yeah,
your editor or your translators had to do quite a bit of work on that, obviously editing it
sure.
and keeping the gist of it. But obviously you knew that because of Sapiens, there was the interest. Mm-hmm. But did you choose this particular book because of the issue that you wanted to have AI discussed in your country?
It's not just about our country. I think somehow, even this is translation from English, we know that if we publish book in Czech, we influence mostly Czech readers. But if you help the particular book and author to be very known, and if you translate it well, you can have bigger influence even on the world events. Because there are some books that are so terribly translated in Czech, but I think it's not just Czech situation, heard about translations from English into Polish or other languages, German. And if it is not well translated, it loses the momentum and the book is like buried. Yeah. And the author is kind of dead for the country. Not always, but it can happen. So we consider our responsibility to publish it in the best shape, in the best way we can, to support the idea. And the idea behind this book is something that worries us and me too, personally. And it is, if we don't understand how AIs work, or not just AIs, but information networks in general, we can have big problem with humanity as a whole. We can even not survive because we can live in a much worse world. So why is that? I studied informatics and I love computers. I'm geek. So I have a lot of things here that I could show, gadgets and some e-readers and some electronics, and which I test, review, write about, and I like it. I'm skeptical, but still I like it. But as for AI, I'm probably the most skeptical from all these areas that I talked about, because first, there is something that we think that it is, but it is not. There is some magical thinking in our view of AIs, especially ChatGPT and other. I think it's mostly about the interface, how one blogger wrote. Until OpenAI published the chat interface, there were LLMs, there were models, and they were really good, like the first one, which we knew, 3.5. It was nearly there, almost, on the level that we know now. But no one knew this, and you couldn't use it, and it was missing something. And now we have the way to communicate with it, how to talk with it, and how to be bosses. We can say something and it tries to fulfill our needs. And this is the problem. These algorithms are based on fulfilling our needs, and they do it instead of being truthful. And it's not something that creators of these algorithms can easily change. Because first, machine learning is based on huge data, and the data is biased. That's the first problem. The second problem is that you can't take data that are in these models as something that is put there as a database of facts. It's just a soup, like when you cut vegetables for your soup and until it's very, very small pieces. And then it's recreated again when you ask for something. The problem is it doesn't know anything. It just recombines at some level on some probability principles what it already had. But sometimes the randomness seems like very creative and impressive, and it's still just a probability model. And I am afraid, and here I am back to the book Nexus, that if we don't understand what happens inside and we consider these things like they are thinking, feeling, or just simply truthful or reliable, we can give them more power than they deserve. And it means, for example, the agents, now we are in the hype of agents used everywhere. Agent is something that you put into, for example, your phone or your company backend software or CRM or something, and it should do something for you automatically or semi-automatically. The problem is that, yes, you can ask this agent to do something on a regular level, but these agents are still just following these random probability models. So if they find something that is similar to what you wanted, they answer right, it can work. But then some situation that they couldn't predict, that was not in training data occurs, then they just create some answer or action, and that's the problem, that was not predicted, and you can just miss it. If you don't see what's happening inside, it can start doing some things that can hurt your company. I'm talking about hallucination on agents level, and you can't frame it easily. It's a huge problem. It's still not solved, but we all are using it everywhere. And this is just one of the problems. When you imagine that this kind of agent will be uncontrolled, used in some framework, it can do harm to company. But then later it can do harm to big company. For example, the company that ensures, for example, that electricity flows into your home and so on. And we saw politicians asking the GPTs to create some outlines of their politics. And then we don't see politicians asking this. It's even worse. They consult decisions, but then they decide, okay, it's great, so let's make it automatic. Yeah, let's make these decisions without we being there and so on. So it's still like we are in a Stone Age, not in the AI age, in our thinking about AI. So we have to we have to go inside and see what happens. But Harari is more about something like what I said, but in a fantastic way. It creates the context, the understanding of historical use and understanding of information networks. He says that information has no relevance. What's relevant is the connection. And even the truth is not so important because many societies were kept together just by lie but by story that was not true in a way that some of us want to understand what is true. So he really concentrates on how we can be less naive in understanding that people don't need to know true. They just want to align with some stories and be part of some information networks. And these information networks can be created by AIs, or in a very short time, it can happen on a huge scale. So we can face much bigger problems that we can imagine. And still, we are not in an AGI era where these AIs are somehow self-aware or self-conscious or conscious. It's another step closer to some dystopia, but it's not here. And still we can destroy everything just by not understanding what we use and what it can do to us.
Well, what I'm seeing now is the use of ChatGPT by people who don't have a lot of knowledge, say kids at school, university students who haven't got a great deal of depth of knowledge, and they're using it. I'm even hearing cheating by using it. So you could go through university using ChatGPT and not really know anything. You've used ChatGPT to get yourself through if there's no way to check that. Which means you're going to have some people graduating who don't know how to do anything, potentially. I was a primary and elementary school teacher many, many years ago. When we went to Teachers College, we had 3 teaching rounds a year where you'd spent probably 12 weeks out in the schools per year. And then you had in classes. So, it was pretty obvious at the end of 3 years whether we were any good at teaching, and then you took a few more years to get experienced. In Australia, they've changed nursing to where you go to university to become a nurse, whereas in the past, you learnt in the hospital. So the nature of nursing in Australia has changed quite significantly. So what we're talking about there is relying on ChatGPT to do the thinking for us and not doing the hard work of actually having to learn and think and write for ourselves. We're losing something. Now, obviously, the group I work with are my age and older, and you're in your 50s. So you've had a lot of learning through your life, and you've read lots of books, and you think about things. I guess if you're using AI, you've got a sense of whether it's giving you useful knowledge that you can use. But I'm also hearing, because I work in marketing and SEO and all that sort of stuff, people just churning out articles using ChatGPT. Now, they might be getting really good at the way they prompt to get some reasonable articles out there, But if you're flooding the market with masses of this information,
Yeah.
you're losing it. Plus, most of us are going to give up reading it anyway. And that comes back to if you've got a book, a real book in your hand, you know you've got something that you can't be swamped with. That's the thing I worried about, is we're giving up thinking and thinking for ourselves.
That's a great question and a huge question. I introduced myself as a geek and technology enthusiast. So I'm really not against new technology or against AI in general. I actually study machine learning on university. Again, maybe we will talk about later. And by the way, why I studied this? Because I want to look inside the black box, and I already can see something. I'm a really bad student, and I haven't made the last exam because I would need 2 days, not just 50 minutes for it. Yeah, but I would do it, but slowly.
We should explain that you've actually gone back to university at 53.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I suggest this to everyone. It's like, going back in time. It's my alma mater, so I can compare how it was then and how it looks now there, and my students, which are 18 to 22, how they changed. And that's fun because we have some project to work on. I'm going just for a lecture per semester. I don't have more time to go there. And even this is very hard. I don't have to go there. You just pay for being there as a regular student. If they have spots for you, then you can go there. If not, you can't go there, but there is still some capacity. So I'm the only 50 plus there, but I don't have to finish exams. I'm just going there for understanding the terminology, the math behind the algorithms, but not into each detail, because I know where to find it if I need it. Yeah. And because I code, I'm a hobby programmer, I can even do some simple machine learning algorithms and try it on our publishing data, by the way. It's interesting and impressive, but still it's like you see, wow, that's so stupid. The feeling that I had when the GPT started, I was impressed too. I was like, it's magic, and they really found something, and they deliberately spread information about not understanding what happens inside. And we are afraid it can have consciousness. And so they should be more careful, but not with the consciousness, more with leaking data and so on, which is, by the way, not solvable at this moment. So back to the question, I use Chat GPTs. I pay for Claude and Chat GPT and some specialized tools to help me code. But it always depends what level content you want to generate comparing to what the output needs. If I don't use it for writing, for example, my articles on my blog, I love having bad wording in my articles. I like writing them. I like creating terrible stuff because I can look at it and then I read it and I can improve it. But I don't want anyone tell me how to write it. But sometimes I use it for checking. So I just ask, okay, have I forgot something important here? And yes, this is the task these generators can do pretty well because it's machine of generating following response from the context you put into. So it can really find, for example, you missed the URL for what you promised on the beginning on the article. So I use it for such a technical thing, but not for writing. My writing has to be even with the flaws it has. So if you are a bad writer, but still you have something you want to say, it can help you create the content to be readable for general reader. And if you just want to say something, for example, you are expert in some area and you want to share it, you can try or you can use it sometimes or every time for generating the content that you curate, that the ideas are yours, but still the wording, the way it can be read, can be improved by these machines. So it's probably okay. But I think I'm better than the machine in writing, including my flaws. So it can't surprise me. Then there are some other areas that I use it. I talked about coding. When I use it too much, for example, you just press the tab key and it finishes the whole function that you started to write. I don't enjoy coding then. I want to think about, I don't know why, but I like it because probably it's my hobby. I don't want to just finish the work. Sometimes I use it because I write in ClojureScript, but I don't know too much JavaScript, but sometimes I need to use it. So because I don't want to learn JavaScript, I just ask, okay, write it for me. And then I check it if it is okay, if it doesn't use any harmful techniques or so. Because, by the way, it can be a problem. For example, DeepSeek can inject some code into your code. And if you don't understand what the code is, it can work until it doesn't, until someone decides your code stopped working and so on. There are some threats that this can be misused this way. So I try always to understand what's inside the black box in many areas. So life is hard for me sometimes. But yes, when you use it often, it feels like, I don't know, I just start feeling dumb. Maybe my senses of dumbness are somehow anxiety based. I don't know. Maybe I just am afraid because I'm anxious. I'm just afraid of being dumb. Yeah? So I see the triggers too soon. Maybe it's normal that sometimes you ask people and they answer and you are not dumb, you just don't know. But this is another problem with AIs. You don't have to think it has some information for you. The problem is that you have to check it always. And the problem of hallucinations is not solved. And it seems like it doesn't change at all from the 3.5. Even they promised they need money to invest. So they say, okay, it's much better and there is several steps thinking and so on. And that's funny because it is still not in the version of 4.5. It's still not able to give you answer that's on Wikipedia. It still hallucinates something that's not true, even if you ask something that it was trained on. But the algorithm can't have the same data. It's not a Google search. It has to create new connections, and that's great. It can be creative, but this is a drawback too. It can't keep the data in the input form, in the training data form. It's not the same. So you can't consider this as something that's reliable when you want to ask about facts. Sometimes it is, maybe mostly it is, but sometimes it is not. And the less you understand the topic you are asking about, the area you are asking about, the bigger chance you will be fooled, that you will get wrong answer and without noticing. That's the problem. And the more you are expert in some area, the more you will see how full of flaws are the answers. And so you can check it for yourself. Yeah, just ask about some things that you understand well, and you can see how it is close to the true or the consensus. And then imagine this is the same in other areas that you don't understand and that you ask the most. So really, this is something to be careful about.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Because what you're saying is, if you haven't got that depth of knowledge, you have no idea whether it's realistic or not. And especially if you are an expert in an area and you go outside your expert area, you can easily be fooled as well. And this is the biggest danger. I mean, the scariest thing I think you're talking about too is because it is so fast, it can be used to spread misinformation everywhere straight away, because it can feed into the social media. It can send stuff to journalists to dominate their thinking in a certain way. And I think we're seeing quite a lot of ideology across the world, especially if you spend too much time on X or Twitter, as it used to be known.
Yeah.
And you can imagine AI feeding into that all the time as bots, which are there now. So it could dominate your feed. It can manipulate the algorithms there and show you certain things. Yeah, look, I agree. That's where I think reading is really important. Taking your own notes, maybe using your own notes to feed your writing. I like to work with AI. I use a lot. And I've got to be honest, I use Grok as well, and I'm finding it quite smart. I'm finding it at a higher level than ChatGPT even, but I haven't been using Claude for quite a while either. But I'm very mindful that you can get overwhelmed with this. But I do aim to work with an older audience, my age, and probably your age and on too. They do have what we call crystallized intelligence. They've got a lifetime of working in a particular area. I'm talking about professionals in some sort of area. They have a good sense of knowledge, but what I think ChatGPT or some of the AI can do is help them do a bit more, especially if they do need to spread the word about what they're doing. So there is some benefits, I think, but, my concern is for the younger ones.
Yeah, I think it's like when we had our first calculator. I remember I just had some very old calculator with these red wire numbers in 80s or something. My father brought it from somewhere, and the battery, 9 volts, lasted, 1 hour of use. It was terrible. It was Texas Instruments. It was beautiful. And I remember having it in my hands as a, 8th grade, 7th grade. I thought, okay, so now I win everything. I can do my homework faster and so on. I don't want to be like the person that says, don't use something because you will be stupid. My parents told me, okay, don't look at TV. And I hope I'm not so stupid as maybe I could be better, but still not sure if it was because of TV that I'm sometimes stupid. So it's just a tool, and we underestimate kids in many ways. For example, smartphone use. There is very interesting study from people from Masaryk University that goes against results of some studies that say everything got worse when kids started to use smartphones. Their mental health issues started with this and so on. This study I'm talking about, they tried to do it really properly and to forget about biases that you have, because as a parent, you want some explanation and you don't want to feel like you made this mistake with your kids. So it's easy to just show the culprit is smartphone here and it's not you, and just to switch it off or something. It doesn't solve mental issues, health issue problems in young generation. There is more to it. There is more about their control of their lives that they lost probably in last decades, because we are completely controlling their free time and everything. So all these gadgets and smartphones are just another way how they spend their time, mostly with their friends. And the study shown that there is no difference between kids that used the smartphones and they which did not. And by the way, there was a very interesting moment that kids can stop using it by themselves, especially when they feel they want to connect in real life. And they do it. They actually do it. So it's not like they are just always watching these smartphones. They are connecting. Even it is just something we don't like. We want them to run or to do other things, but they do it maybe not so often. So I would like to say it's not about it's all crap and it will make world worse. If you feel you are overusing it and you feel like you are cheating your mind, cheating your efforts, you can just stop doing it and do it the old way. But then you have to do some work which the system created to be very tedious, and it's not something human-like, because even before AI there were not human-like bureaucracy things which Harari talks about too. Bureaucracy, not always bad, because it can connect people with the government. But when it grows too much and loses its spirit, it doesn't work. And it's the same. It's always about the level of implementing these tools and being truthful to yourself in this. So I really try not to use ChatGPT for things that I can think myself. For example, I try always to make it a bit harder for me. Sometimes I know I need it quickly. It's not about publishing something that I want to be authentic. So yes, I ask for some kind of help. And there is, for example, one very funny use. One of my colleagues has some business partner of us, which is really terrible in communication. She is like really toxic. Yeah. But we have to cooperate with it's different company, and we rely on the service they do. So my colleague found a way not to be triggered by her constant rude words. She just asks GPT to rewrite her reaction to be more acceptable. And then she found that even the person I'm talking about, she started probably to use ChatGPT too to answer more politely, because maybe someone told her, or she's just lazy to think about her rudeness. So she showed me the exchange was like between two very polite people that tell each other very not polite things. And it was much less stressful than it was before. Yeah. So it can help. Yeah. But you have to contain it in some area and say, okay, here it's okay. But I warn you, be careful not, for example, using this with your wife. So that's it.
Yes, be real, I think. Fantastic. We're probably coming to the end here. I was just going to say, with your calculator, we used to use slide rules when I was in high school, doing mathematics, things like that. So, it's just the different generations and the technology. I was analog. Absolutely. I'm digital now. But we've got people my age who are still very analog and are frightened of this sort of stuff. But I think our conversation today is explaining, yes, you've got a brain. It's important to still use it. Don't fall for all the technology. You've still got to think critically about these things. Now, Thomas, how do people find out more about you?
Oh, they can find me on Blue Sky now. I migrated from X platform, Twitter, or via my website or my blog.
I'll put them in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know how to spell them.
But you're on LinkedIn as well. That's right. Because I see you all the time on LinkedIn. I keep an eye out for you. The big thing about all of this, even though you write in the Czech language, is still able to press translate, and it will tell us what you're writing about. And that's how I came across your book, The Wager. I thought, oh, what's that book? And that was just a fascinating story. So, Thomas, thank you for talking about publishing. I'm hoping people can hear into what you're saying. There's a whole lot of things we're talking about business in there and marketing and thinking critically as well. So thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Nigel. It was great.
That's all for today's Wisepreneurs podcast. Age is no barrier when you're a wisepreneur crafting a purpose-driven career. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe, leave a review and share it with your network. Visit wisepreneurs.com.au to join my newsletter for exclusive strategies and ideas, and connect with me on LinkedIn for more insights. I'm Nigel Rawlins, and I'll see you next time to keep building your future with impact.